reason. All my dreams come alive. Life is for living. With you, I've made my decision. You lift me up, fill my eyes with wonder. Forever young in your love, this freedom's untainted. With you, no moment is wasted. See the now bursting through the clouds, black and white, turn to color all around. All is new in the Savior I have found. This is living now. This is living now. You lead the way, got you right beside me. In your love, I'm complete. There's nothing living with you. It's like you created. I choose. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white, turning color all around. All is new in the Savior I have found. This is living now. This is living now. You take me higher than I've been before. It's all your love, takes me so. Got your freedom is an open door. You are everything I want and more. Maybe I ain't really know what living is. Is it love? If it was, am I living it? Do I live in it? So astounding. Love is an ocean, you can drown. The sweet embrace, the lovely taste, I taste and see. I'm under grace, the place to be. It means I'll never need an umbrella. I'm cool in the cold and the hot weather. Whether I never ever understand, I'm a man in the hands of great plans. I stand with faith there in life. I never know to touch and still I stop a clutch, but I'm like, what's the dream? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm living, I'ma live with the day. So what's the dream? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm living, I'ma live with the day. This is living now. Take me higher than I've been before. It's your perfect love, see me so. Got your freedom is an open door. You are everything I want and more.
Not really. This is my first time going to camp. Track. Archery. You got to shoot arrows. That He is always with you. Filet. That it's really noisy at night. You can't go to bed.
Jonathan's going to make me about half a point.
I'm not. It was actually pretty priceless. Just getting to see these kids actually worship and the impact that God was working and showing Himself through all of these little kids. It was amazing. Mine is finding lost kids, spraying them with silly string when they least expected it. I would highly recommend it because there's perks to both. I mean, it was that was the best take of it all.
I see your light is breaking through. The dark of night will not overtake me. I am pressing by every battle, and I will not fear. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You're my strength. You're my defender. You're my refuge in the storm. Through these trials, you've always been faithful. You bring healing to my soul. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I have a maker. He formed my heart before even time began. My life was in his hands. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I fall. I have a Father. He calls me his own. He'll never leave me, no matter where I go. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear and hears me when I call. We'll do that chorus one more time. He knows my name. Knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I call.
make disciples of all nations. If you guys have a picture up here, her name is Yaiki, and she's from China, and she's 16 years old, upper middle class family. She's very, very smart, but she has never in her life been to church or prayed. She's seen it on TV, and that's all. Yaiki is coming to the United States in August, and she is going to be living with Dave and I as an exchange. And she has said that she's excited to see what church is like. We're also hosting another girl, I don't have her picture, a 15-year-old from Germany, another girl. And so we're going to have 2 exchange students living with us next school year. Now, I bring this to you because, like, I personally have never been on a mission trip outside the United States. I either don't have the money or I don't have the time. And so bringing a foreign exchange student into your home is like bringing the mission field to your living room. I think there were 11 exchange students at Campbell County High School last year, and a large majority of them came here either not as believers or never even heard of church, really as we know it, and most of them went back believers. This is a huge mission field. We have students running out of time, and so I think we have students from South Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, Germany, and Kyrgyzstan. I don't know if I said that one right. Some of their interests are music, family, movies, travel, board games, shopping, watching sports. And let me tell you the best part. These kids like to cook, and they will bring their foods to your home and cook for you. It's really awesome. All of the kids that we still have, I think there's 7 total, and there's papers back there on the back chair under that screen about the students that still need placed. And my information is on the back of that paper, so you can get a hold of me if you are interested or know anybody that would be interested in hosting 1 or 2 students next year. Every single one of them claim inactive as their religious status. Look at that, right? All you're required to do is provide them 3 meals a day and a bed to sleep in. They can share a room with another sibling that's kind of close to their age, obviously the same sex. If they need to, they don't have to even have their own room. You can host if you're married, if you're single, if you have kids at home, if you are empty nesters, if you're young, if you're old. There's no perfect host family. We're all able to do this if you just have a little bit of room in your house and your heart. Most of these students are here from August through May. There's lots of activities for them to do through the exchange program all year long. Even if you don't have the time or the means to entertain them with things, they have lots of things to do. There's a huge support system here in Campbell County. For the times you're going to get away, if Dave and I want to go off for a weekend, there are other families that they can go stay with. And one of the big things is you get these family memories that you'll always have. And for Dave and I, it's kind of an opportunity to get us out of the house. We tend to be homebodies, so it's going to be good for us because we're excited to show them Dollywood, art, and the Smoky Mountains, and all these things that is brand new to them. So I just want to close with telling you about 10 years ago, we hosted a girl from Germany, and she came back 2 years ago as a successful adult for my daughter's wedding, and she stayed with us for a week. And it was just really, really neat to be able to, we've stayed in contact all this time. She's still waiting for us to come visit her, and we are going to one day. But it's just really neat because you end up with a lifetime of memories and plus an opportunity for your mission field to be right there. She also still sends chocolate, so that's a plus. But anyway, there's information back here on the chair, and if you have any questions, just holler at me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
It's a huge opportunity to love and to care, and Stacy, time and money is two excuses God will not accept. Missions. So I just thought I'd call you out on that. All right. Bob, will you and Danny and Brad, Richard, give y'all. John chapter number 2, verses 13 through 22 this morning. John chapter 2, verses 13 through 22. While you're turning there, let me ask you some questions. Are you angry this morning? Did something make you mad? This morning you got something happen. Maybe at home before you left you got mad. Maybe on the way here something happened that caused you to be mad. Maybe since you've been here. You're hanging out and you ticked off. Angry.
We'll play with it.
Is it ever okay to be angry? You know, Ephesians 4:26. I think I had that. Ephesians 4:26. Look at what Paul said. Paul said, "Be angry." It's literally a command. It's a command to be angry and do not sin. Can we be angry and not sin? Well, if we can be angry and not sin, what does that look like? What does that look like? Today in this passage I think we find clearly that Jesus was angry. And Jesus acts upon his anger. I want you to think about this. Jesus will act not only with words, but he will act physically with anger. But wait a minute. How can Jesus, the Son of God, be angry? Isn't God love? Has we as a group of believers, have we lost the ideal? Have we lost something that says that genuine love, that true love, there are times it's demonstrated by anger? I think we've lost that teaching. That genuine love is demonstrated through anger. So was Jesus angry without sin? 2 Corinthians 5:21, Paul wrote this about Jesus after he was in heaven. He said, "For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God." Listen, Jesus was angry here, but Paul is saying that he never sinned, though. There was no sin in his life. So if Jesus was angry without sin, what does that look like? Was it how he acted upon his anger? Or was it what he was angry about? I think it was probably both. I think it's how we act upon our anger, but I also believe it's what we are angry about. And we'll talk about that. Let's read this passage. We're still working. We're going to figure it out yet. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves, and he was doing business. When he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overturned the tables. And he said to those who sold doves, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise." Then his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house has eaten me up." So the Jews answered and said to him, "What sign do you show to us since you do these things?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Then the Jews said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. Therefore, when he had risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had said. The Passover is at hand. This feast was by far the largest and most important, and still is today, the most important and largest attended feast that the Jewish people do, that the Jewish people keep. They come together to celebrate how they were in slavery to Egypt, how that they cried out to God, and how that God heard their cries, raised up Moses and Aaron to deliver them. How God worked many miracles in order that Pharaoh would let them go. But it wasn't until the last miracle. It wasn't until God sent the death angel. It wasn't until the death angel passed over and all the firstborn died. It wasn't until that happened that Pharaoh didn't just let them go, but he sent them out. But God gave instruction to them that if they would take a lamb and kill the lamb, place the blood on the lintel and on the doorpost, that the death angel would pass over and that no death and no judgment would come to their home. So that's what the children of Israel did. So here they come, and Jesus is going to the temple to celebrate this very thing. To celebrate freedom from slavery, to celebrate freedom from death because of the blood of the Lamb, and to celebrate the freedom that they had to go and serve God. It's an exciting event. And Jesus is headed there knowing he is, as John the Baptist says in John 1:36. Think about this. The Lamb of God, which takes away the sin of the world. And in 3 years from this point will be the time when Jesus will die this very week as that Passover lamb. But let me share just a little bit more about the Passover feast. See, people would come from miles to celebrate this feast, and there were some requirements. If you were a man over the age of 12, how many men do I have over the age of 12 today? Huh? Hey, welcome, my men over the age of 12. John, I'm not 12. You had to offer a sacrifice for your sin. If you were a man over the age of 19, you had to pay a temple tax along with your sacrifice. So many of these people were coming from a great distance, so they would not bring their own animal for the sacrifice, but it was not allowed in the temple. So once they got there, they had to exchange the coins that they had because the coin had the wrong picture of it. It had a picture of Caesar. It wasn't allowed in the temple. So they had to exchange it. So Jesus arrives. He arrives at the temple, a place where people should be able. Listen, this was the whole purpose of the temple, is that the glory of God should be beheld. It was a place where people would offer sacrifice for their sins. But when Jesus gets to the temple, he hears sounds of commerce instead of sounds of confession. When he gets to the temple, instead of prayers and praise and thanksgiving, he's hearing angry men haggling over the prices of animals. The noise of men and animals and the smell of manure have taken the place of men humbly worshiping their Father. Holiness and genuine worship has been replaced with merchandise. Jesus hears, Jesus sees, Jesus smells, Jesus examines, and now Jesus acts. Did you see what he did? He took some cords and he made a whip. He didn't speak before he acted. He took a whip and he moved in the temple and he began to drive the men and the animals out. And then he began to turn the tables over, spilling the coins on the ground. With a whip. Angry about what was going on. And he drove them out. But I want you to get this. I don't believe that Jesus ever lost his temper. You stay with me, and I'm going to share this with you. I don't believe he ever lost his temper. I believe we can be angry without losing our temper. I don't believe Jesus ever lost control of his actions. We can be angry without losing control of our actions. I believe that Jesus was angry, but he was in complete control of what he was doing, and he was specifically knew what he was doing. You see, how can I prove that? I believe that because there would have been so many people in Jerusalem at this time that there would have been an increase of policemen or Roman soldiers because they didn't want a riot to happen. They didn't want something bad to take place. And if something, when he began to rip them out of the temple, when he began to drive them out, had he caused a stampede, had he caused, I believe he was in control. I believe it was his authority that people responded. And he moved them out. But what was he mad about? He wasn't mad because he felt like he had been overcharged. He wasn't mad because he had to exchange his coin. He wasn't mad because somebody had said something about him. He wasn't mad because somebody had said something about him to somebody else. He wasn't mad because of how he was being treated. Stay with me. He was mad because of how his father was being treated. He was not mad because of how he was treated. He was mad because of how his father was being treated, how God was being treated. So, what was it? What was it that they were doing? Just a little side note that you might note here. He said, my father's house. He didn't say our father's house. You know what he was insinuating? Is that they were not children of God. My father's house. Now, let's watch this. Because I believe there are three things that Jesus was angry about. I believe there are three things. And the first one was this. Watch this. The first one is that the worship of the Father is now self-worship. What did he say? He said, you have turned my Father's house into a house of merchandise. What's a house of merchandise? It's Walmart. It's Walmart. I can go in and I can get whatever I want, whatever I need. And I can look at the price and say, oh, I don't want it, and I can get it cheaper somewhere else. Or I can bring my little paper and I can say Walmart. They got it cheaper at Kmart, and Walmart will match it. Do you know what? They made a house of merchandise. You realize what that means? It means instead of them coming and being worshipers, instead of them coming and beholding the glory of God, they had become consumers. They were not coming to God's house in order to worship Him. They were coming to God's house to see how they could profit from it. They were deciding, what do I like and what do I not like? Ooh, I liked what Maggie done this morning. Oh, and some might say, I didn't like that first song they sang. I did. I didn't like the way we mixed up this because we come and we sit as consumers. Instead of beholding the glory of God, we choose what we like and don't like. That's what was going on here. They were consumers. They were buying. It was merchandise. They were selling. They were profiting off of the temple. And he was mad, and he drove them out. Let me give you a second thing. I believe that he was mad. He was angry because of the oppression of others. Because of the oppression of others. Because of the way that they were treating each other. See? Watch this. They were mad. These family members, this group of people that belonged to the nation of Israel were traveling for miles. And they weren't bringing their animals with them. And they didn't have the money to exchange. And they were coming to the temple. And once they were getting there, they were having to pay a price for the animal that was more than the animal was worth. Once they were getting there, listen, more than a half a day's wage was what they were charging to exchange the coin. So you've got these people that have the cost of the travel that are coming, and then you've got the merchants, and them saying, let's take advantage. It's kind of like going to Dollywood and getting thirsty. You know, I need a Coke, but I know it's going to cost me $10. And they won't let me bring nothing in. They're worse than the airport about checking. So they were what? They were taking advantage of the people. They were really oppressing. They were really putting bond of the. And Jesus was angry about it. But you know, Jesus was not only angry about it, so was God. In Isaiah chapter number 58, God was angry about this same kind of a thing, this same kind of oppression, this same kind of the way that we treat others. In Isaiah 58, I want you to think about this. The children of Israel were saying to Isaiah, we're fasting, but God's not listening. We're praying, but God's not listening. We need to be healed, but God's not answering. And God told Isaiah, you tell the people that this is the fast that I desire. This is the fast that I want. You know what he told him? He said to loose the bonds of wickedness and undo heavy burdens. Let the oppressed go free and break every yoke. Feed the hungry, house the homeless, and clothe the naked. That's the fast that God said I want. He said, I'm tired of us turning a blind eye, of us ignoring people who are in desperate situations and placing people in more desperate situations. And you all want my attention. If you want my attention, do something about those who are being oppressed. Matter of fact, I thought about this week. Maybe that's the healing that America needs when we begin to recognize and know that we've got some people in our nation who are in oppression, who are in the bonds of addiction, who are in struggling, who are homeless and who are hungry, and when we will finally do something about it, God might take note of what America is. That's what he told the nation of Israel. This is my fast. Didn't he? So it was the oppression of others. But there's another one that's interesting. I think it's the obstacle that kept the Gentiles from beholding the glory of God. You say, watch this. Watch this. There was a part of the temple. I want you to think about this. This is so good. God is so awesome. There's a part of the temple that's called the court of the Gentiles. And the court of the Gentiles is where the Gentiles were able to come. And they could come to the temple and they could behold the glory of God. They could behold Him. They could come and offer their sacrifices even though they were not of the nation of Israel. But do you know where the animals and the tables were? In the court of the Gentiles. Do you know what they'd done? They had placed obstacles in the way of the lost being able to see the glory of God. You remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that John the Baptist, what was his message? His message was to make straight the way of the Lord. What did it mean to make straight the way of the Lord? To remove every obstacle so that people can see Jesus clearly. So that Jesus could see. But they had cluttered it with their merchandise. Cluttered it with their stuff. What does this mean for us? What does this mean? If these are the three things that Jesus was angry about, what does this mean? Well, there's a time to be angry. There is a time to be angry. But there's a way to be angry. The way to be angry is what? Not with a temper. It's not out of control. And it's very thought through. But watch this. This is where we get it wrong. There's a reason to be angry. And the reasons to be angry is not about how we're treated. Not about how we're dealt with. Not about us. The reasons to be angry is how does that sin affect God? See, all sin is against God. The reason to be angry is to think about, really, I want you to think about this. And we try to do some things, but the reality is, if we had no music, we just come in here and sang. We had no music. We had no projectors. We didn't have air conditioning. And we didn't have padded chairs. And we didn't have all the nice stuff. We just came to behold His glory. We came not as consumers, but as worshipers. God, it's about you. It's not about me. See, when it comes about us, it's self-worship. It's not worship of Him. So, what it means is there's a right reason to be mad. There's an anger. There's an anger. Angry over what? Over how people are oppressed and ignored. How people are labeled. Do you realize this? Do you realize that when we place a label on somebody, we can never see them as the people God made them to be? Only as the label we've labeled. So we really, what should we be angry about? We should be angry about that the churches in America have become houses of merchants. I think we ought to be angry that there's 30 million slaves in the world today, and many of them children. I think we ought to be angry that there's 5 people living under a bridge next to a public utility board. I think we ought to be angry, listen, about what God is angry. Not what we're angry, but what God is angry. So, with that being said, I think we've got to ask ourselves, okay, these are things angry, but I think we've got to evaluate this morning and say, but hang on a minute. Hang on a minute, okay? Maybe it's not about me being angry. I think we've got to ask the questions, are we walking in the merchant's shoes? Did I show up this morning here to see how it would profit me? Or did I show up here this morning to be a worshiper? Are we walking in the merchant's shoes? Are we walking in a merchant's shoes when we just continue to allow oppression and just turn our heads away from it and ignore it? I know this is a huge political matter, and I don't care. But I'm going to tell you, we ought to be mad when babies and children are separated from their parents and treated the way they're being treated. There's a different way to handle it. But see, because we labeled, we put labels upon labels upon labels, we can't see them as human beings anymore. We can't see them as being made in the image of God. I'm probably not a popular preacher in Campbell County, but that's okay. There's just some things that ain't right. I don't care who does it. There's other ways to handle it. Other ways to deal with it. Listen. Let's go on. Are we walking in the merchant's shoes when we place obstacles? This is really what we do. People's unbelief is not our largest concern. People's sin is our concern. If you'll fix your sin, we'll talk to you about Jesus. It really isn't true. If you'll fix your sin, we'll talk to you about Jesus, but until you fix your sin, we'll talk to you about Jesus. Kind of awful. The question is this morning is this: is Jesus angry? Would he whip us this morning? Would he drive us? Some people would say no, because Jesus satisfied the anger of God and sin has been paid for, and I agree. But think about this with me. The children of Israel had a responsibility to maintain the temple in such a way that the glory of God is beheld and God is worshipped. To maintain it in such a way that they are not putting or ignoring oppression of people. And that by all means they're not placing obstacles that people can come and confess and be set free. That was their job. But then Jesus said here to them when they said, you drove these out, give us a sign that you have the authority to do this. And Jesus said this, watch this. Jesus said, you destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll raise it up. They thought he was talking about the temple that they worked on for 46 years, but it wasn't the building that he was talking about. It was his body. You see, at this point, the glory of God is leaving a building made by hands, and the glory of God is residing in a person. Remember John 1:14? Said the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. You know what the word dwelt means? It means to tabernacle. You know the difference between the tabernacle and the temple? The temple was a permanent spot. The tabernacle moved about. Jesus was the tabernacle of God on earth. He indwelt the glory of God. John 1:14 went on to say, and we beheld his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father. We beheld. And Jesus went about earth. Well, how did Jesus go about? With people being able to see the glory of God in him. People being set free from chains and bondages and forgiveness of sins and healed. And number 3, he was always considered to be a friend of sinners. A friend of sin. But can I take you a step further? Can. Jesus died. He arose from the grave. He spent 40 days on planet Earth, and he went back to the Father where he's seated, and he makes intercession for us today, day and night, and he's returning one day. So now where's the glory of God? He didn't go back to heaven. He left it here. He sent it back. Where's the glory of God? It's not in a building.
Amen.
It's not in a building. This building was a Jazzercise building a few years ago. Yeah, some of y'all remember that, some of you don't. It's not in a building. Look at what 1 Corinthians 3:16 says. Do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? Do you realize that it is you and I that contain the glory of God? It is you and I that represent the temple that the Jews had. It's you and I. So the question is, and our maintaining of us, not this building, not another church building, but of us personally. See, we don't like to talk about us personally. It's always easier to talk about them in that building. But you got to talk about us personally. If Christ come into your temple today, if Christ come into my temple today, what would he find? Would he find somebody who's worshiper, or would he find somebody who's a consumer? Would he find somebody who loves God, or would he find somebody who loves themselves? Would he find somebody whose life is about God, or would he find somebody whose life is about themselves? Would he find somebody who cared about people that's under the bridge? Would he find somebody who cared about the foreigner, the person that's been put out? Would he find somebody that cares? Or would he find somebody who's turning blind eye to all these things? Would he find in your heart that you have made the path straight so that people can come to Jesus, that people can see Jesus clearly through you? Or have you placed so many obstacles in your life that people can't see Jesus? That temple that he was angry about, you and I are it today. And I said this Friday night at our appreciation dinner for those that volunteered the homeless shelter. You and I are plan A to bring the lost, to loose the bonds, and for people to see the glory of God. Listen to me. And there's not a plan B. There's not a plan B. It's you. So it might be this morning, I want you to come and get a sign. I'm finished. But it might be this morning that was. It might be this morning that we need to think about ourselves and our lives and say, man, are they some things that we ought to get angry enough to do something about to make a difference? Are they some things in our life that we ought to get angry about and say, man, I'm not only tired of my heart coming to church and being consumed, but I don't want to put the pressure on the leaders that they have to entertain and be sure that they have something good for people to consume. The last thing I want to do is a stone up to the wall. Let's stand.
Jesus, He loves me. He loves me. He is for me. Jesus, how can it be? He loves me. He is for me. Couldn't run from His presence. I couldn't run from His arms. Jesus, He loves me. He loves me. He is for me. Jesus, how can it be? He loves me. He is for me.
I want to remind you something. Mission statement of this church is loving God, loving others, and making disciples. Those three things are clearly seen in this passage today. Christ was angry because they were worshiping self over Him, how they could follow. That's our relationship with God. That's loving Him. Christ was angry because of the oppression with each other. That's loving others. Christ was angry because the Gentiles had been locked out of the temple. That's our relationship with the lost world, making disciples. So all those scriptures, just that easy. That's right, our mission. 2 commands, 1 mission. We'll stick to that. Oh, so God. Because I love you. Let's be angry. What about the right thing? And do it in the right way. Father, love you. Thank you for your word. Thank you for these people. In Jesus' name. Amen.